Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, should I say. Welcome to what was your Sunday night racing of the Tanso Racing Group GR86 Round 4. And like I say, it would normally be on a Sunday, however, this one wasn't broadcasted live, so I'm bringing that to you today here. And then obviously later on today we will have the live Round 5 as well, so stay tuned for that. But welcome to what is a good little track for the GR86, the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. Apologies if I butchered the name of the track there, but we are here today to witness some fantastic racing, and no doubt we'll have some of that on display as well. So we brought you your points last round out, and they are obviously up to date. There will be a show of them later on in the broadcast that is live here tonight with us. As you can see, the cars are going around on track at the moment in qualifying, and that'll be a Mr. Mark Brown you can see down there on track. So what we'll do is we will jump straight over to him and see how he's getting on in this session. Now, we have turned the audio up for the car engines as well, so you can hear them a bit better. So you do have to let us know if you can hear it okay, and basically, yeah, if just the audios are working okay, as we see Mark Brown taking a little bit of an off track there, a little bit of a squirrel coming out of that, and we're towards the end of the qualifying at the moment. You can see 21 cars putting in lap times there, so a good packed grid, top 6 reverse grid as well. So if Tom Bland can finish in that P6 on this race 1, he will be that race pole position for the second round tonight. And I think I've had 1 or 2 outings on this track myself. One of them was in the GR86. The other one was in a GT4. And both cars were absolutely fantastic around here. It is a wonderful little track. And it does put up some interesting challenges as well for these cars as they fly around here. You can see Mark Brown putting in a yellow sector first of all, then a purple for the middle sector. Can he capitalise and put in a wonderful final sector to jump him up from P5 at the moment? Coming on to the start finish straight then, alongside the DRS signs. And there is the checkered flag for Mark Brown. No improvement. 138.112. Position stays the same for Mr. Brown. We'll bring you your starting lineup. It looks like it probably won't change much from what we can see on screen at the moment. Also, we'll bring you your normal, your battle box, and we are going to introduce bringing in your leaders for each class as well, and that'll be showing up all throughout the race as well. We'll leave it at the top of the screen for you so you can keep track of who is where, and I think that corner is going to pose a bit of trouble for some of these racers. As you can see, Mark Brown going up on 2 wheels there as he went round the corner on the exit. Just over the rumble strips, you have the green section just before you go into the off-track area, and I don't know what they call that green section. I don't know the official name, but we'll sort that out in a few moments as we bring you your grid. Scott McFall leads away for round 1. Then we have Jack Holland in P2. Then we have Dan Wareham, sorry, P3. Peter Duke, P4. Mark Brown, P5. Tom Bland, P6. Sean Webber, P7. Scott Brown, P8. Peter Woodmore, P9. Then we have P10 for Dan Forster. Neil Kennedy is in P11. Raz Harper, P12. So we scroll a bit further down the grid. We have Michael Walters, P13. Tim Walters, P14. Lee Rylands, P15. Terry Atkinson, P16. Kevin Woodmore, P17. Stuart Briley, P18. Sean Atkinson, P19. John Johnston, P20. And then we got John Kenny in P21 there. So as I was saying, there is a little green area which these cars hit just before the gravel on the exit of the corner, and that looks to be what was causing some issues there for Mr. Wareham. Toxic Munchkin, let's go. Welcome in. Hope you are well. We're just waiting for a few cars to get out on the grid. And what we'll do is we'll bring up the class display as I've mentioned. All cars are on the grid. Engines are revving Lights are flashing and we're green, green, green. All cars underway. A lot of smoke there on the grid. You see some cars making an early dash for it, and unfortunately there's a car stopped on the grid, and that is Raz Harper, who's jumped straight to the pits on the start. And in comes Jack Holland then leading the way for this GR86 race opener. The car of Scott McFall on the inside looking to take the lead early doors, and does so. He's side by side at the minute though. Jack Holland does fight back and gets that position again. And his teammate Dan Wareham just in behind that as well. You can hear some calamities in the background. You can hear some cars bumping up against each other as we look towards Peter Woodmore here in the green. He was going side by side initially with Sean Webber, but has backed off quite considerably now. As you can see, there is a bit more of a gap between the two cars. Now, just to remind you, the colours of these cars then, they do represent something with the slashes next to their name on the left-hand side. The blue, as you can see from the top of your screen, is labelled as Pros, and the red is the AMs, and the yellow is the Pro-Ams. So they are the car classes for this series. And that'll be something to keep an eye on. Obviously, you can see your leaders at the top of the screen as well. Jack Holland leads the race and leads his class at the moment. Peter Duke, P4 overall. Here he is on screen now in the white and orange car. Number 77. He is the leader of the AMS. The next person in the AMS is Scott Brown, who's back here at the moment. So there's quite a bit of a distance between the two cars, and several cars in between them as well. And we have Sean Webber at the moment, P7 overall, but he is leader of the Pro-Am class at the moment. Car number 250 in the SimTech livery there. Peter Woodmore, Jack Holland changes his livery to the same as mine every race, but show him in SimTech. Okay. Not too sure what's going on there then. That'll be a trading paints issue, I imagine. If he's changing the regular paint overall for the GR86, then that could be the issue, because you need to change it for the league, not for the overall paint, so he might be changing the wrong one. But unsure on that one. See Neil Kennedy here going up alongside and gaining the position over Lee Rylands. So those two going in side by side. Looks like they've got each other's rims there as well, like the rim colour, with Neil Kennedy with the white, which will probably go with Lee Ryland's livery there. But instead, it looks like they've just switched tyres. They've taken each other's tyres out there, and now they're taking each other to war as well on track. As the first 3 minutes have lapsed already, 17 minutes left to go for these GR86s. They're probably only just getting up to temperature about now as well, especially with the tyres. But this track is very demanding with the tyres as well, with the corners that come up. And I think that's something that we might see take effect as the race goes on. Now you can see on your right hand side of the screen the track map showing all the different car classes in terms of colours, and then you have the position numbers as well. They are the overall position numbers. The new rig is doing Johnny Johnson some good. Well, here he is. Here is the man of the moment, Mr. John Johnston, number 55. Oh, having a bit of a squall there on the exit of that turn, and P18 overall, the Aqua Twist livery sponsor, obviously sponsoring this season's racing with the GR86s. Got Terry Atkinson with the Terry's Chocolate Orange livery just in behind the big boss man himself as well. Looking back towards the top of the grid, Jack Holland has fallen down to P3, just behind that teammate of Dan Wareham. I'm assuming they are teammates with the both SimTech livery cars. So you can see there are cars falling down the grid at the minute. It looks like Dan Forster, unfortunately, is not out of the race, but he's certainly out of contention for the higher positions as he falls down to P16, down 6 positions from his starting grid place. Let's bring up the good old battle box as well. You can see that for yourself in the bottom right hand corner there. The numbers will show how many positions gained or lost each car has got indeed. And I understand that there is a car, and I think no, it's not John Kenny. Okay, so aha, that makes more sense. So there's a new feature that's on the track map that I didn't realise we had until now, and I've just clocked what it is. So if any of these cars did happen to go into the pits, you will see on the track map where they would come out. So, for example, Scott McFall, your race leader at the moment, 371 in the Tanso Racing Group livery, currently leading the way. If he was to pit now, for whatever reason, he would come out in P17. So it's quite a handy little feature to show you. However, these guys don't have a mandatory pit stop, but you never know. We have seen some people go into the pits, such as Raz Harper went straight into the pits this race. Obviously, if he was to return, it would show you where he would pop out at. Jack Holland now taking the pressure to Dan Wareham. As we have Stuart Briley now closing up on his time as well. Same with Peter Woodmore. And just as I say that, it's the other Woodmore that unfortunately is off track. 207, Kevin Woodmore, down to P17 as it stands right now. And he has Terry Atkinson just up on the rear end of his car there as well. The green livery of the Woodmores does stick out quite well. It's a livery that's quite recognisable, and we do see it in many battles as well from both the Woodmore drivers, both getting involved at all times and taking the fight to many different races out there in many different rounds that we've had this season. Speaking of the devil, there he is, Peter Woodmore, 289. Going around in P8 currently. Obviously, just to remind you of the colours on the left. Blue is pros, red is AMs, and yellow is pro-AMs. Obviously, the green bar that you can see is the car that we are focusing on. And at the moment, that is Mr. Woodmore. Peter Woodmore, that is. We see Sean Atkinson trying to take the pressure forward in that Monster Energy Racing livery. Currently in a sandwich of cars at the moment, all close together. You may not be fighting for that race victory, but what you are fighting for is track position, and no matter where you are in the table in this series, there's always some action going on for you. You'll always find someone around your pace. And that is exactly what these guys have found here in this one as well. I just have reports that unfortunately John Kenny has crashed. Not too sure how true that is. Oh no, he did have a little bit of a slip up. Because sometimes we get reports that these drivers have crashed when they actually haven't. They've just put a couple of tyres off the course, and Mr. Kenny has certainly done that indeed. You can see some of the dust being thrown up from the rear of his car after taking a little bit of a detour off-road with the 86. See, these cars on this track do spread out quite easily, and there's a bit of a squirrely moment there for Tom Bland as Sean Webber is going to take advantage of that situation. and put himself on that reverse grid P1 spot. That's P6 at the moment in this race, but Peter Woodmore also in for a shout of that position as well, as he's also managed to make the jump and get in front of Tom Bland there. Unfortunately for him, on that earlier incident in the start of the straight, which has caused him to lose a lot of momentum heading up the straight as well. And it gives Sean Webber the advantage in the Sim Tech car there, car number 250. Just entering into sector 2 now of this circuit, in towards the long right-hander. Bit of puff of smoke there on the inside, no doubt from drivers clipping the sausage curb on the inside there, and that thing is quite tall as well, so no doubt it'll be absolutely lethal if you did make contact with that with any form of your vehicle. I would say Peter Woodmore is having a bit of pressure from the rear, but Tom Bland again having a little bit of an off track there, but manages to keep the speed up. And he's not in a position to attack Mr. Woodmore yet, but he's not too far off it either, so got to keep on his toes as Peter Woodmore. Tom Bland in behind, and obviously a quick driver as well is Bland. Looks towards the inside there. On the brakes, you see the car kneeling down, and Peter has given him plenty of space on the inside there. They're still going to be side by side. So close racing between these two, squeezing each other out as we head up the start-finish straight. Tom Bland looks towards the inside once again, and he's going to be shown the inside this time. Going to take full advantage, and you can really see the bounce in that car as he takes that position away from Peter Woodmore and pushes up into P7. One more car before he's back to where he was a moment or two ago. But he does have a healthy pack behind him, involving Neil Kennedy and Scott Brown as well. So any slight slip up from any of these races, and that could cost them dearly, as this is where the fight seems to be. Scott Brown just on the rear end of these two, squabbling it out. He's looking up the inside early there out of the exit of the corner, but there's not a long enough straight really to make any moves there. You'd really need the car in front of you to have a slip up on that exit to try and capitalise on that and push up your position. See, he got on the brakes nice and early there. Scott McFall still leading the way, by the way, for the race. Dan Wareham not too far behind, starting to close that time as well, so keep an eye on that on the timing tower. We'll switch to that if it gets any closer. But at the moment, this seems to be where things are going down. This is Peter Woodmore's view onto the start-finish straight. Slight left-hand turn before we break into a longer right-hand turn, like a massive hairpin, basically. For those from the UK, imagine it as half a roundabout. Jump back to Scott Brown, and he can see the rear end of Peter Woodmore there. Getting right up close to it, you can see in the mirror of Scott Brown's car, in that central mirror at the top of your screen, you can see Neil Kennedy just in behind him, that 342 green Fox Motorsport car. And oh, that was close for Peter Woodmore, nearly losing the car there, and Scott McBrown getting on the brakes a little bit earlier than normal, just to make sure there's no contact between the two. The wipers going there for Scott Brown. I think it's because of the dirt that flicked up, just to clear that off of the windscreen there. Heading in towards the final 5 minutes for these races then. Scott Brown really looking for a way forward, but hasn't found it as of yet. This is the sandwich that he's in at the moment between two green cars. Not for the same team though. Peter Woodmore out in front, and then the Fox Motorsport car there behind as well of Neil Kennedy. Let's jump to your leader and just check in with them and see what is going on. This is the view from the back of Scott McFall's car. Dan Wareham not too far behind at all. He's been there, been lurking around that area for the last couple of laps. Is he just waiting his time out and waiting for the perfect move, or perfect time to strike for the move, sorry, shall we say, as Tom Bland does look to get the overtake done. They're side by side at the moment, Tom Bland and Sean Webber. Sean Webber hitting one of the exit cones there, or the entry cone should I say, as Tom Bland does take the advantage and moves back into P6. So this is where he started, and you can see Sean Webber, Tom Bland, Mark Brown and Peter Duke all in the positions that they started in this race as well. That group of 3 is still having the same situation where they're all same distance apart and no one's really able to make the move as of yet. There's no slip-ups caused by any of these drivers as well, so it shows the skill level in these races out there today as well. Even with the pressure on them, they're still not having any slip-ups at all. We get a lovely dashcam view there from Scott Brown, sorry. That was a mix of Scott McFall and Scott Brown there. Scott McBrown, there we go, we've made up a new entry. So there goes the 58 car, P9 overall. Sean Webber at the minute getting really close now to the back of Tom Bland once again. So these two are possibly going to be battling out for the last couple of minutes. And same with Sean Atkinson, looking to go up the inside of Michael Walters there. Monster Energy livery does have the inside line there. They come onto your screens then. Takes full advantage of that and gets the job done. Does that bring Dan Forster into play? So you can see he is on the back of this group of 3 now. And we notice this is quite common in this series where these cars do tend to group up into groups of 3. And they always have tight battles between each other. And there's an off track there for someone. I think that's John Kenny, unfortunately. John Kenny not having the greatest of days here today. A couple of off tracks, but to be fair, it's not the easiest track in the world, especially if you're not used to it. It's certainly a challenge. I've raced around here before, like I say, a couple of times, and the first time I went around here, I had no practice at all, and I was awful. And even now, with practice, I'm still not the best, but we push on, you know. Dan Forster at the minute, though, looking to go up the inside of Michael Walters. Can he get that move sorted as we go into the last 2 minutes of this race? And just as I say that, watching very closely as Jack Holland looks to move up the field once more. Jack Holland there in P3. There he is on your screens now, 325. Just behind the 373 of Dan Wareham, also in the Simtech livery as well. I'll just remind you of your leaders for classes. Scott McFall is the leader for the pros, and the leader for the AMs is Peter Duke, who's having a fantastic race, I will say, in P4 overall. And then we have Sean Webber in P7 still, but leading the Pro-Am class as well. Let's jump towards Mr. Atkinson then, who's looking to put some pressure onto Stuart Brierley there. Stuart Brierley being a veteran of the Tanso Racing Group as well, a name that we see pop up season after season. And whether I'm here broadcasting it, watching it, or even taking part, Stuart Brierley seems to always have been there, because I think I remember racing Stuart Brierley when I first joined iRacing, and Tanso Racing Group was the first league I had ever joined, I believe. That was indeed, actually. And I was racing the likes of Stuart Brierley, who was very quick compared to me. So, yeah, I've not ever managed to get one up on him, unfortunately. I nearly done it again. Scott Brown, not Scott McBrown. Scott Brown trying to put the pressure on Peter Woodmore just in front. This group of 3 really have bunched up. Now is the leader on the final lap, and he is on the white flag now. So the white flag is out. Peter Woodmore is still leading this pack of 3. And these guys have been close all race long. There's nothing splitting them up whatsoever. And I think even if you've got security down here, they wouldn't be able to do much between these three cars. The pace and consistency is all too similar. So it's not doing these any favours whatsoever. You see Dan Forster in the middle of this group of four. He's half a second behind the two cars in front of Michael Walters and Sean Atkinson. You can see a little bit wide there for Tim Walters. Car number 66 on the back of this group of four. And things are really starting to get close now, as you saw Michael Walters trying to get the inside there. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do so. And that's actually going to bring in contact behind there, unfortunately, between Dan Forster and Tim Walters. Looks like Dan Forster's car got a little bit squirrely when he looked like he was going to go for the move, and I think introduced some braking, and unfortunately that brought the two cars together. Scott McFall does come across the line then in P1, so fantastic first race for him. Dan Wareham in P2. Only just as Jack Holland nearly beat him to the line. They're 0.055 of a second apart. As we see Tom Bland wanting to redo the race, and he's trying to rewind his laps by driving it in reverse. Unfortunately, he's not understood that, and he's still driving the correct way around the track. He needs to drive the wrong way in reverse. But waiting for the last few cars to come across the line. There goes Tim Walters, absolutely flying down the straight. Just waiting on Mr. Jono Johnston, the big boss man himself, coming around the final corner now. And there you go. You can see the little dot in the distance. And there is Mr. Johnston coming across the line there now in P19. So what I'll do is we'll bring you your results for race 1. And then we'll look into bringing you your race 2 results. Race 2. Sorry, not results. We'll look into bringing you your race 2 coverage. There we go. So, your winner for this race, Scott McFall, a fantastic and dominant race for him indeed. Dan Wareham and Jack Holland fighting right up to the last second, and Dan Wareham does come across at P2. Jack Holland just missing out on that podium spot. But he's still on the podium nonetheless, just the bottom step instead of the middle one, and that is P3 for Mr. Holland. Peter Duke, a fantastic race for him, winning the AMS in P4. They have Mark Brown P5, Tom Bland P6, and then Sean Webber winning the Pro AMS in P7. Peter Woodmore P8, Scott Brown P9, Neil Kennedy P10, Lee Rylands P11, Sean Atkinson P12, Michael Walters P13, Tim Walters P14, Kevin Woodmore P15, Dan Forster P16, Stuart Briley P17. We scroll down the grid, P18 for Terry Atkinson, and then John Johnson P19, John Kenny P20, and Raz Harper in P21. So they are your results for the first heat of this evening. And now what we're going to do is we are just going to switch over our screens just momentarily while we skip through these 5 minutes of warm-up time, and then we'll bring the commentary back for the second race this evening. So I'll be back in just a moment. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are getting ready for the second heat here this evening. which will be coming up for you any moment now. The 5 minutes have elapsed. We're just waiting for the grids to come in, and here it is. Or here it isn't, should I say, as apparently Scott McFall is leading the way. Well, I can tell you this for free. He's not. So I believe it should be Tom Bland, Mark Brown, Peter Duke, Dan Wareham, Jack Holland, Scott McFall. Then we have Sean Webber, Scott Brown, Peter Woodmore, Dan Forster. That is your top 10. Neil Kennedy, Raz Harper. That is P11, P12. As we go down the grid, P13, Michael Walters, Tim Walters, P14. Lee Rylands, P15, Terry Atkinson, P16, Kevin Woodmore, P17, Stuart Bradley, P18, and then Sean Atkinson, P19, John Johnson, P20, John Kenny, P21. I can hear the cars getting up, ready and underway as we look towards your leader then, Tom Bland. There he is, getting a good start off of the line. And 376 has got a bit of a gap to Mark Brown just in behind there in P2. Mark Brown having the lovely duty of defending off from Peter Duke. But just as I say that, Peter Duke isn't going to do any attacking, as we see some cars spinning out here of control early doors. More come around as cars are all over the place. Unfortunately, Tim Walters there involved in that as well. Yeah, Peter Woodmore, Sean Webber, and Raz Harper not making it to the course for the second outing. As we look towards the YouTube chat. Speaking of Mark Brown, here he is. Counting down the hours for VIR start tonight with a long draft session to T1. It could be anyone's race. It could be indeed. And I'm looking forward to sitting there and bringing that one to you live for once this season. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Should be some good racing tonight. It's a track I'd quite look forward to commentating over as well. It's a very nice track to broadcast over. Others do cause some difficult outings, but VAR is certainly one of the ones that a lot of the racers like as well. So there's always a good feeling going into that race, and a good feeling not only for the racers, but it also brings a great atmosphere to the fans and to those watching at home, and to the commentators as well, and the stewards going over the racing live with you. Let's look towards Dan Wareham at the moment, who is chasing down Peter Duke in that white and orange livery. It does stand out quite well there for him. Now what we'll do is we'll do exactly the same. Battle box will come up. Track map will also show. And once more, you can see if any of these cars were to pit, where they would come out, because that is why there is a P that is circled with the green lines there, and that will show you if they had to pit stop. That is the part of the track they will come out onto, and the position they will fall into as well. So you can see at the minute, if Dan Wareham happened to pit for whatever reason, he would come out in P17 overall, which is where Peter Woodmore currently is. Jack Holland looking to close the gap, and we've seen this before from Jack Holland, obviously in race 1, closing the gap to the cars in front, and unfortunately having to back off in some instances, but hopefully this time he can take that initiative and push on through. Tom Bland leading the way, having a good first race, a little bit of a slip up, but made a fantastic comeback drive to get that position back that he did once have, and he managed to get a lovely finish over the line as well. We look towards Tim Walters, who's just gone on the inside of Stuart Bradley, who we were talking about in race 1 there. And in fact, Mark Brown will be another name that has joined us in the YouTube chat. He is another one that I've raced here in the Tanso Racing Group when I first started iRacing a couple of years ago now, I think. But yeah, I do remember racing the likes of Mark Brown as well. So there's a lot of names in here still that have been here season after season that I remember being on track with. And it was very fun, actually, being on track in the Tanso Racing Group. As Dan Wareham, unfortunately, isn't having a lot of fun and falls down to P13 overall. So not ideal for him, as he drops down from that incident a little earlier on. Jack Holland in the 3-2-5, closing the door down to Mark Brown in P2 at the moment. Both Sim Tech cars blocking the road for Peter Duke as well. Obviously, all Peter Duke can see is a Sim Tech wall stopping him from getting forward at the moment. Because he wouldn't have to just overtake one Sim Tech car, he'd have to do both of them if he wants a chance to go for the leader. And here is Peter Duke's view. The two Sim Tech cars ahead of him, Jack Holland and Mark Brown. Let's look towards Scott McFall at the moment. And Scott McFall is on the inside there of that Monster Energy livery of Sean Atkinson. And you got Kevin Woodmore just in behind him as well. Neil Kennedy is making some moves on Lee Rylands, who does try and push up, but Lee Rylands having that momentum coming out of the exit there of the final corner. Across the start-finish line, and Neil Kennedy is going to try and look for a switch back to the inside line, but doesn't go for it in the end. Stuart Brierley, unfortunately, going for some spinning there in the background. And possibly some collision between Stuart Brierley and one of these three cars on your screen, between Tim Walters, Sean Webber and Peter Woodmore. Maybe not, but those were the closest cars at the time, so he might have been in a heated battle, which unfortunately ended up with him seeing the sands of Oschersleben circuit here. So we look towards Sean Webber, who's trying to take the fight to Peter Woodmore. Some of these cars being involved in the earlier incident in turn 1 of lap 1. And unfortunately, when those cars were that close together, it was inevitable it was going to happen. But in race 1, we had a fantastic start where all these cars got off cleanly. And fantastic viewing. Lovely opportunity for photos as well for any of those keen photographers we have in the racing world. There were some amazing opportunities there for some photos. As we see Sean Webber, P16 at the moment, trying to take that P15 from Peter Woodmore, but he's not letting him do it easy, as Peter Woodmore does slide in front through the S's. Neil Kennedy now trying to get up onto the back of Lee Rylands, and Lee Rylands trying to get towards Scott Brown to see if he can pull away from the Fox Motorsport car of Mr. Kennedy. And he has opened that gap ever so slightly. You can see it extending out just a little bit. Jack Holland, 137.229. Greatest lap time so far this session. A wonderful job for him. And already that extra 5 minutes these cars had has now lapsed. So they are back to similar timings that we had in race 1. They now have 18 minutes to go, if I've calculated that correctly. Yes, I have. Yeah, 18 minutes left to go in this race for these drivers. So plenty of time yet for things to change, but Tom Bland is looking to try and take full advantage of those minutes and extend that gap between him and Jack Holland. But Jack Holland is a quick racer, and it's not going to be easy. And same could be said for Peter Duke, who's trying to get himself on that podium. But unfortunately, Mark Brown is in front of him, and this is dashboard view for Mark Brown at the minute going through the S's. This will be Peter Duke just in behind. See how close they really are. Mark Brown making full use of the exit curb there, and then slightly bouncing onto the grass. Now, Mark Brown is one of those cars that we have seen so far during these races that really does push his car to its limit. As you've seen him bouncing off some of the curbs and flying around on two wheels. As we see, there's a bit of contact there in the background. I think it's Lee Rylands that ended up going around, but I think possibly Scott McFall helped him stay straight, as we saw those two cars extremely close side by side. And for a moment, I thought Lee Rylands was completely gone there. And there is some cars that have gone in the background. Michael Walters straight into the wall, unfortunately. He is, I wouldn't say out of this session, but unfortunately has collected Sean Atkinson as well, who looks to get back underway as soon as possible. Michael Walters is moving, however, is still spinning. Sean Atkinson's just waiting for a clear moment to do so, and there he goes. He does start to roll and get underway. Michael Walters just a little bit up the road, P12 at the moment. Obviously, that earlier incident, you can see all the dust flying off the back of his car after collecting all that sand and dirt from the off-track there. And the collision with the wall. Remember, the damage is turned off, so the damage will not affect these cars. They won't have any performance enhancing damage at all. Peter Woodmore 289 in P19 at the moment, on the rear end of Stuart Brierley in the It's Racing livery. Looks towards the inside line and side by side with Mr. Brierley. Brierley on the brakes nice and early, giving the advantage to Peter Woodmore, and he takes that advantage indeed and runs off into the distance with it as he gets that move done. Now heading up towards Dan Wareham. P10 overall at the minute. He can solidify those P10 positions by going up one more into P9, but is he going to be able to get around Kevin Woodmore? Now this is the other Woodmore racer that's out there in the It's Racing livery car as well. Has Dan Wareham got enough in the tank to get by and get in front to get that P9 spot? Scott McFall quickest overall, 137.104. Very, very quick time for Mr. McFall. Obviously your race 1 winner, as Dan Wareham does look to got the inside with the brightest rims probably on the circuit at the moment. He does take that, and that's a commonplace for these cars to overtake. We've seen plenty of overtakes done in turn 1 of these races so far. So it's definitely a hot spot for these guys to get their moves done. We look towards Jack Holland at the moment, who is trying to close the gap on Tom Bland, but not close enough yet to get any moves sorted on him. Once again, Mark Brown taking full advantage of the... I don't know if that is deemed as an off-track there, where you see him putting 2 wheels on the grass or not. I think the green area still classes on the course, so I think he might be getting away with it. And that's actually helping him around as well, putting in some quick lap times. You see Tim Walters in the majority white livery there. P14 heading up to the back of Michael Walters. Battle of the Walters then at the moment. Oh, a lot of smoke there in the camera view. And still loads of smoke, as I think we've probably had a little spin for Mr. Wareham, who's just in front of the 2 Walters cars, as they are going to be side by side going up the straight by the looks of things. As does Tim have enough momentum to get up alongside? He doesn't, and unfortunately we're still single file between these two. It would be nice to see these two take battle to each other. Are we going to see an inside line move? No, we're not. It's going to be defensive from Michael Walters here. So Tim's unable to stick his nose up onto the inside this far. But we won't write him off just yet. There's still a chance, and there's going to be many chances, no doubt, before the end of the race for that move to be sorted, done and dusted. And we could be going up to that moment here any second now as well, as the time between these two is nothing at all. So you see Tim Walters there taking the advantage through the inside line, and he has got by Michael Walters, so he's got that job done and moving up the field once more. Jumping up to Jack Holland then. P2 at the moment, just behind Tom Bland. 2 tenths is all the splits for 2 cars as well. Nothing much in it whatsoever. As these GR86s are firing on all cylinders to try and maximise these lap times. Get them as low as possible. Maximise the grip through the corners. Wonderful little car to race indeed. And some fantastic racing we have seen as well. Obviously, just a reminder, your season sponsors for this racing season are the TS Livery Designs. And the main sponsor is Aqua Twist as well. You will see that Aqua Twist logo on the front of many of the Tanso Racing Group cars. And speaking of which, let's jump to the boss man. You will see there on the front of Mr. John Johnston's car, Aqua Twist. 100% natural, pure spring water. The livery of this season. Or the livery of this season. The sponsor of this season, racing in the Tanso Racing Group. Obviously a fantastic opportunity both for Tanso and for the sponsor of choice as well. To be linking up and bringing you this fantastic season of racing. As we head towards Mr. Webber now. Getting onto the back of the Terry's Chocolate Orange livery. There's Terry Atkinson just in front. You can see we are into the final 10 minutes now of this racing session. 9 minutes 30 left to go for these guys to race their little hearts out. And remember, this isn't the only racing we are going to see today. It is Sunday, which means round 5 is today. Later on this evening, we'll get back to that in a second, as Sean Webber does get into P10, takes the open door that was presented there by Terry Atkinson, who had a very wide entry into the corner. It slowed him down a great deal. Sean Webber does push up into that top 10 area and looking for a top 10 finish for himself. So we look towards Peter Duke, the AM that is probably going to be dealing with a nosebleed and needs several first aiders after this race, because he's been really high up in this grid for both races now. Fantastic performance for him. Potentially driver of the day as well, really, for Peter Duke, as he's in the AM class and he's fighting in amongst the podium spots at the minute. He's not too far away from Mr. Mark Brown. As I was saying before, while Peter Duke does his work, this is Sunday today. It is currently 2:20 PM on Sunday afternoon. This race obviously is not live currently. This is a replay, but we do have live racing for you this evening at VIR. The Tanso Racing Group will take to round 5 with the GR86s, with some fantastic drafting, as you've heard from Michael Brown obviously in the chat, and myself as well. There's going to be some interesting racing to come this evening and a fantastic course to do it on as well. So make sure you free up your calendars for this evening if you haven't done so already, as we are in for a treat tonight. Decent weather, fantastic weekend, and some fantastic racing yet to come as well. We see the 77 Peter Duke unfortunately conceded position to Scott McFall. I think he was more doing it to let Scott McFall take the fight to Mark Brown. And you never know, this might work in Peter Duke's favour. Because if Scott McFall and Mark Brown do fight it out, that could slow both of them down. And Peter Duke could take the advantage and push on through past 2 cars. Just under 7 minutes left to go, as we see Scott McFall almost side by side. And in fact, is side by side with Mark Brown, heading down the start-finish straight here. Mark Brown going to have that inside line, though. We see how much of an advantage that gives people. But Scott McFall is not going to give him any of that advantage as he squeezes his nose up on the inside. Fantastic racing as they remain side by side through there. Mark Brown does concede the position down to P4 now. Scott McFall pushes up into P3, and Peter Duke right on the rear end of Mark Brown once more. So this plan really did work out in Scott McFall's favour, as he's now found himself onto the podium spots. 5.3 seconds behind the leaders. We have Jack Holland and Tom Bland, P2 and P1 there. But unfortunate for Mark Brown, as he was probably hoping that Peter Duke could put up a bit more of a defence against Scott McFall, but that did not happen, and unfortunately left Mr. Brown up and exposed for an attack. And speaking of an attack, here comes one from Jack Holland, who goes towards the outside line, defensive on the inside for Tom Bland, and who goes later on the brakes. There's dashboard view for that P2 car of Jack Holland at the moment, who does have the advantage on the inside line there. He does back out though, indeed, the 325. Possibly maybe a little bit of a slowdown for something there, but I didn't see him go off track at all, so I'm not too sure why he backed off so much. Maybe just to keep things tense. 4 tenths split the two cars though at the moment, as we look towards the last 5 minutes of the race then. These are the lineup so far. Tom Bland, Jack Holland, Scott McFall, Mark Brown and Peter Duke. There is your top 5. And one thing we'll bring up to you once more is your class display. So as at the top of your screen, you'll see pros is Tom Bland leading the way for that class. Peter Duke for the AMs, and Neil Kennedy, P6 overall, but leading the pro AMs as well. Jack Holland now using that green area just beyond the rumble strips, and slightly dipping onto the grass before the entry to this left-hander and around to the back half of the track, as we do have a John Kenny just up the road of the leaders now. So let's see what kind of possible shenanigans maybe, or intervention that may lead for these drivers. It's never easy as a back marker, because there's all the pressure really is on you. It's not really on the racers behind. You have to make sure you are being safe and you're out of the way as well. I think we've still got another lap or two yet for John Kenny to cruise around before he's brought into play here for the lead. You see Jack Holland still just on the rear end of your leader. You can see John Kenny did get out of the way there very nicely indeed. You saw him up the inside line there in the Tanso Racing Group livery. John Kenny, not a name I've seen before in the Tanso Racing Group, so possibly a newcomer to the series as well. So I hope you are enjoying yourself, Mr. Kenny. Shout out to you, sir. Racing week in, week out. Love the commitment. Now, people that are having a bit of fun back here is Sean Atkinson at the minute in amongst it. P16 overall. John Johnson up 3 positions. Apparently on a new rig as well. So, enjoy that new rig, Mr. Bossman. Another successful season for you as well. Plenty of drivers in amongst the Tanso Racing Group community, and plenty of people loving the racing as well, which is always nice to see. Oh, bit of a spin there for Sean Atkins. I'm not too sure what happened there. Possibly some wheels on the infield, which inevitably got the Monster Energy car to spin with the loss of traction on the inside wheels. Lee Rylands just on the back of Scott Brown. A tenth and a bit is all that splits these two cars, as we see Dan Wareham has made the move and got past into P10 of Sean Weather. And I'm not too sure who we just saw in the background there go off and hit the wall. Oh, I think that was Mr. Kenny, in fact, as we see him stationary on the track map there. Jack Holland once more getting up nice and personal to Tom Bland again for this race lead. Now we're coming up into the final couple of laps here. There's not going to be much left on the table for these guys to get their moves done. Remember, if you are enjoying the racing here this evening, or this afternoon should I say, please do drop a like and obviously drop a message in the chat, let us know you're enjoying yourselves, and subscribe to the Tanso Racing Group YouTube channel as well. We really appreciate that. Help them hit their goals. Let's see if we can get to 100 subs by the end of the season. That'd be a magnificent achievement. As you see, the P2 man of Jack Holland still nice and personal with Tom Bland. They have been all race long. As the 325 looks to take on the 376. Simtech car is right on the rear end of your leader as they come along the start-finish straight. You'll see there is the white flag as the leaders do go by. This is the last attempt that Jack Holland will have at the lead. Can he get that move done and solidify that gold medal for this second race? As it stands at the moment, Tom Bland, Jack Holland, Scott McFall, they are your top three. And Mark Brown a couple of seconds outside of the podium spot there as well. There you go, your two leading cars. Tom Bland still leads the way. Jack Holland not finding any way around him. And I don't think he's going to do so before the end of the race either. As Dan Wareham and Sean Webber going at it once more. As Sean Webber does get back in front of Dan Wareham, who's unfortunately just dropped out of the top 10 finish. At the moment, can he claw that position back as your leaders do get onto the back straight now before they come up to the final couple of corners before this second race has finished. See, Dan Wareham is closing, or he certainly was a second ago anyway, as he's now 5 tenths behind the car ahead, and he's dropping off rapidly in fact. So Sean Webber I think has now solidified that position. Fantastic consistency from these drivers here. As you see Tom Bland, this is the view of his down the straight, weaving left to right as he knows he has won this race as he comes across the line sideways in fact. As we sit here with Barney now, Scott McFall 136.984, quickest lap time of the session, right at the very end there. So you can see at the top of your screen, those are your winners for each car class. As we just wait for all the cars to come across the line. Some absolutely fantastic racing then this afternoon for the Tanso Racing Group. Obviously remember this is from a replay, so this is what happened last Sunday, and don't forget today is Sunday, so we will have some live racing for you at VAR tonight in the Tanso Racing Group as we just wait for Mr. John Kenny to come across the line. And your winners for each class are Tom Bland up there for the pros and overall. And Peter Duke, P5, fantastic race for him, winning the AMS. And then Sean Kennedy, no, not Sean, sorry, Sean Kennedy, Neil Kennedy, finishing the leader of the Pro AMS as well. So fantastic racing then. And a wonderful afternoon of driving from all the racers that are out there this evening. As what we'll do is we'll bring you your results in just one moment. Oh, it's decided to all go. There we go. Tom Bland did finish P1. Jack Holland P2. Scott McFall P3. Mark Brown P4. Then Peter Duke winning the Ams there in P5. Neil Kennedy winning the Pro-Ams in P6. And we have Scott Brown, Lee Rylands, Kevin Woodmore and Sean Webber. That rounds off your top 10. Just missing out on the top 10 finishes, Dan Wareham, then Tim Walters, Terry Atkinson, Michael Walters and Dan Forster as your top 15. John Johnson finishing P16. Then we have Sean Atkinson just on from that in P17. Stuart Briley P18. John Kenny P19. Peter Woodmore P20. And Raz Harbour P21. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. That is your Heat 1 and 2 around the Motorsport Arena, Oschersleben. Later on tonight, as said earlier, we do go to VIR Raceway, and what a fantastic set of races we do have coming up for you this evening. And I look forward to seeing you all then. We'll bring you up-to-date points, scores, and some fantastic live racing as well. So plenty of action yet to come. Make sure you're here again later on this evening. Can't wait to see you then, and have a safe couple of hours. Normally it's a week, but for today, it's a couple of hours. So we'll see you very, very soon. Thank you, and goodbye.